So, one of the moments that seems to be getting some traction in the Nintendo community coming out of E3 was this interview Reggie did with Bloomberg. In it, this interviewer did not pull punches with the questioning, starting right off with the company's falling stock values, as well as asking about the Big N's thoughts on revenue streams such as loot boxes. So I wanted to talk about the things Reggie had to say in this interview. Let's start with the stock prices.
Nintendo as a company loves to surprise people. So what that means when we approach an event like E3 is we show content that's going to launch over the next 6 to 9 months and no more. And so we always have more surprises. There's always more in store. And so why the analysts reacted the way they did, who knows? But we know from a company perspective, there's a lot more up our sleeves and there's a lot more that we have to show over the weeks and months ahead.
Now, he's right in that Nintendo has been trying to keep things tighter in terms of not talking much about releases that are far off, again, in terms of release. But I don't think he's being very straight. Granted, it is part of his job to be positive. But saying things like, oh, why did the analysts act the way they did? Who knows? I wouldn't go that far. Yes, you like to keep things close to the vest, but again, E3 is the biggest show of the year, and if you had something else, specifically for this holiday, which falls into that 6 to 9 months window, this was the time to show it. It seems like in terms of releases through this holiday, we're already set, and I think these investors rightly have some concerns about it. I see this as a reaction to not just how they feel about the current lineup going through the end of 2018, but sort of how everything's been going throughout the entire year of 2018. Don't forget, while the Switch took some time to build up a library, it had some insanely great and successful games released last year. Breath of the Wild at launch, massive sales. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, massive sales. Mario Odyssey, even bigger, more massive sales, etc. And to start off 2018, actually we're already halfway through at this point, and the system hasn't exactly been killing it in terms of major releases. Again, before everyone in the comments goes off and lists every single game, including indies, that has been released, we're talking about stocks and financials here. They need to make big money as well. Nothing at this point has been on the level of, say, a Breath of the Wild or a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which at this point last year, we had already seen both of those games release. So in these investors' eyes, if you're going to have such a light earlier part of the year, you need to close out big. And I do think they have two pretty major games coming to close out the end of the year. I guess technically 3, but really 2 in terms of the new Pokemon titles and Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, Smash, I think, is in a fine position. I think it's going to do fantastic. But while I also think Pokemon will do great as well, the question really is, how great? I think these people were expecting something more core for the next Pokemon. I know many fans were, and I think there is some concern as to how big of numbers this game is going to put up. You know, how close will this come to, say, a traditional Pokemon game, if at all? I mean, one glance at social media and you can clearly see how divided the fan base is over this game. And remember, when we're talking about stocks, we're talking about money. So essentially, yeah, you can fanboy and say, oh, it's going to do amazing, sell millions upon millions of units and systems. But how much real money would you be willing to actually bet on that? You know, if you're so sure it's going to move, say, 15 million units, then go empty out your bank account and buy Nintendo stock now while it's low, because you'll be rich come this holiday. Investors like reassurances, not question marks. And I think the Pokemon Let's Go games are kind of big question marks in terms of making the system as successful this year as it was last year. To be clear, I'm not saying the Pokemon Let's Go games are going to flop or something like that. But with them going in this new direction, you know, blending Pokemon Go with traditional Pokemon sort of aspects, it's hard to be confident. I get where they're coming from in terms of how the masses are actually going to react when the games go up for sale. And either way, even though falling stock prices is never a great thing, I hardly think this spells any sort of doom and gloom for the Big N, so I wouldn't worry about that either. So okay, we've discussed the stock aspect. Let's discuss the dreaded loot box comment.
What we believe, for example, at Nintendo is that a gameplay mechanic that offers the consumer something to buy that they're not sure what's inside can be interesting, as long as that's not the only way that you could get those items. And I think that's where maybe some developers have made some mistakes. For us, it's one of many mechanics that we can use to drive ongoing engagement in the game.
Honestly, I feel like this is pretty much the same thing we always hear when companies flirt with the loot box model. I think, again, a lot of fans really need to get off this Nintendo won't ever train. You know, Nintendo won't ever make mobile games. Nintendo won't ever charge for online. Nintendo won't ever implement loot boxes into their core games. I mean, are we getting tired of setting ourselves up for disappointment yet? Now, I hate loot boxes as much as anyone, actually probably more than most people, but I am nowhere near ready to crucify Nintendo over this statement. As far as the, oh, you gotta be able to earn it in the game as well deal, yeah, that's what everyone says. Again, it does nothing for me, but Nintendo also hasn't screwed us over with loot boxes up to this point, at least not in any of their non-mobile games. So I have to wait and see if and how they do it before I comment on it. And like I said, I don't like seeing this stuff. I refuse to believe anytime loot boxes enter a game that it won't impact the way you earn this stuff. Any company is going to try to incentivize you to buy this stuff by making things feel more like a chore. It always happens. Just how big of a chore are they going to make it is the question. But for that, still, I think we just have to wait and see. If it happens and it's bad, believe me, I will be the first one you'll hear bitching about it. But to me, it's no use freaking out about it prematurely. After the big EA debacle of last year, it sounds like they probably had some sort of loot box system in Anthem and then have dropped it completely as a result of the backlash they got. So I think everyone's kind of tiptoeing around with this. Nobody wants to be the next EA, okay? So no matter what, it's going to be interesting to see how the whole loot box game develops continuing on. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see and react accordingly. And with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Reggie's recent comments on Nintendo stocks, as well as loot box possibilities in the comments. As always, I'm John Zakari, and thanks for watching.